All right, folks, here we are back again with Morphy's Games of Chess. We got game number 56 coming up, the 8th match game between Morphy and Anderson, held on December 25th, 1858, Christmas Day, folks. You know, the last game I realized was on Christmas, the 7th match game, so I guess they played two this day, huh? It was a very special Christmas. I wonder if Santa was watching. All right, so anyway, here we go. Anderson's got the white pieces, and what does he do, folks? Well, once again, he plays A3. Like it. Oh, look out, look out. Shredder wants to mix it up. Let me turn him off. All right, so Anderson playing A3 like in the 6th match game. Okay, and matter of fact, the moves are exactly the same up to a point. And here we go. This is where Morphy plays E5, okay? Anderson playing the Sicilian, okay? He just basically threw in A3, and you got the mirror image of White playing a Sicilian. Here you go. You get the knight comes out. You push in the center, they trade the pawn. Centralized knight for Morphy. There he is. And look at this, the E3 variation, all right? Mirror image would be E6 for black, right? And now you got Morphy playing the bishop to E6 to defend the knight, right? To support it, I should say, because it's defended by the queen already, as you know. And here comes the king knight for Anderson. Morphy protecting the E pawn from that knight on F3. Bishop to E6. Now you got Anderson preparing the castle. Bishop to E2. Morphy castles. Now Anderson hits in the center with D4. Morphy takes the knight. The pawn takes back and now advances in the center, hitting the knight on F3. The knight drops back, and now Morphy protects that pawn up there on E4 in enemy territory. He's got to support him. He doesn't want to lose that guy. All right, so now that was, what move was that? 10, right? F5, and now here you go. Anderson playing F4. And in the last game, like we said, these moves were exactly the same as the 6th match game up to this point. It says the moves are identical with those of the 6th game. But now Morphy does not repeat his bold G5 move. He plays rather to delay White's development. Okay, and here we had this move, right? And yeah, Anderson, let me make sure. Shredder wants to play bishop to C4. I believe that's what Anderson did, right? It was move, yep, bishop to bishop right here, you know. That's what he did. All right. So anyway, I mean, he'd never want to take this because now you're just opening up this diagonal for, look, let's just say he castles, right? Well, look at that. You're hanging this. But my point is, by taking on G5, you're opening this guy. That's deadly, you know. And matter of fact, he could bring the rook up, rook lift. Who knows, right? It could get dangerous for White here. So anyway, yeah, look, he's going to threaten mate already. He doesn't even want to take the pawn. He doesn't go for material. He just comes up. Look at this. Look at it. What's he gonna do, folks? Right? He's gonna give the exchange. He's got nothing better, I guess, huh? If he does this, you just sack, right? He takes, check, goes over, and you're gonna bring the rook up, I would think, right? Rook F6, and then he can block. He can block. Okay, if you go here, right? He can block with his bishop. See that? The queen. And the light square battery at least enables him to block. All right. So then I guess he fights his way back. Look at this. They're giving the evaluation to White +4. So I guess the attack will peter out, and then you got White has the material because Black sacked that bishop, but who knows, right? Look at this. So you got a better move. You got the better move. No rook lift. You got the queen check first, only move, and now he's going to come to G7. The rook's going to come here, I guess, right? Because that's it. Look at this. This is something else. The subtleties of chess, folks. Here it is once again. Now, when the rook comes here, that's the threat, right? The light square bishop, look, he could only block. He can't block like in the last one. He's got to block the G file, and you got your F pawn there to gobble him up. See that? Let me see what's he decide to do. He plays this guy over, right? Get the check. And he decides to go with this one. He takes here, you know, oh, look at this, you're eating him up. Now you take the pawn and you can gobble up the rook undefended. Look at this. All right, unbelievable. So he throws the rook here, you take him with your pawn. And now look at this, even if the attack, you know, slows down, now you're up the exchange, right? Look at this. All right, here you go, right? Now you pick up the pawn. Okay, so you can even, oh, you pick up another one. Wow. Okay, well, anyway, and you're attacking the rook in the corner. What happened to White's pawn structure, right? It's gone. All right, so anyway, you know, Black's got that one under control. Okay? But that's because we're just throwing in the silliness of if White was to take, right? If he was to take that on G5. Hence, this is why Morphy played it in the six-match game. But Anderson, an great attacker himself, okay? He basically wrote the book. I mean, you know, he knew not to take there. That would be deadly, right? So he played his bishop here. But now we're going into this game, right? That was the six-match game, whole different battle. So now here we are in the eighth-match game. Same moves up until this point. Morphy, as the old masters note, playing rather to delay White's development. No G5. He placed a queen up with a check. All right, you block it. And now he slips it into H3. So now Anderson can't castle, right? He can't do it. So look at this, Shredder finding the move Anderson plays. Okay, chase that queen out of there. And Morphy brings the queen back to H6. But you see now, the bishop is stuck there. He can't castle, right? He's got to move him again. So Shredder recommending to move it. But now look at this, folks. Look at this. What if he was to go here? Look, you're chasing the black queen out. He can't go here. Can't go here because of the white queen. He can only go here because this would be a mistake to maneuver out of there. Look at this. You trade, and then you win that wedge pawn up there, that E4. Okay, you can't play like this. You can't give it away. I mean, now look at Black's pawn structure. I mean, White has all the pawns, central control, right? He has the F, the E, and the D pawns. I mean, you know, he'll have central control here. This is pretty. Look, okay, he takes the bishop. Now White has the bishop pair. He's got the pawn center, big center. This is going to be real dangerous for Black. No good. All right? So, you can't play like that. Of course, Morphy plays the queen to H6, right? Retreats it. All right. So, he brings it to H6, and now you have the pawn up. He's got the 2. Now he has the D pawn and the C pawn controlling these key squares. See that? All right. So, what does Morphy do? Well, there's a little footnote before I get into what Morphy does. All it says here is, as in the 6th game, this was the square for his knight. This C4, this is where the knight wants to be. Because he's going to either maybe grab the bishop here, but really he's eyeing E5, which is an outpost, folks. No black pawns can boot a piece out of there. Now, obviously, Black would trade him, you know, just do something silly. Yeah, look, he even want to take the bishop anyway. But once that knight would cement in there like that, I would assume that Black would want to take it, you know. You're taking, okay, captures towards the center, right, has more central control, another pawn in the center, and then he opens the F file maybe for the rook, okay, and he's good to go. I mean, actually, it's pretty even. It's pretty even. You know, one thing, even though White has the bishop pair, it's good to note Look at all the white pawns. They're all on the dark squares, making this bishop a bad bishop, folks. He doesn't have much scope. He can't really get in the fight. So that's a thing to note. Now, he would probably try to push these central pawns, put pressure on black. And maybe then he can get his bishop into the game. You see d5's probably coming. I mean, maybe not yet, because then he'd hang the e-pawn, but okay. So anyway, let's see. Maybe it is coming now. I don't know. All right, whatever. But there you go. This is some notes. Just take notice of the white pawn structure, all on the dark squares, and this bishop becoming a bad bishop, because that's key. In this game, too, you got to take note. Look, the old master said this was the square for the knight, like in the 6th game, okay? But Anderson here playing the pawn up. Now he can threaten to push d5, I think, booting the bishop, this bishop out, and then setting up. Okay, again, look, you can push d5. He would retreat, but really that's opening up a beautiful diagonal for this bishop, right? Like what we were just talking about. He wouldn't be a bad bishop anymore. But you have Morphy now playing c6 to prevent this guy coming up, right? He just lose a pawn like this, and it protects the bishop for having to retreat. Okay, so what does Anderson do? Anderson pushes c5, and they give him a question mark. Why? Well, if you noticed in the last move, c5's not bad here because it does boot the knight back. I mean, it boots the bishop back. He has to retreat to e7, but now he does give up control of the light square, right? And maybe the knight could work his way in there somehow. I don't know. Oh yeah, by you got b7 is kind of hanging here with the rook now to the b file. You'd want to bring your knight like this, maybe bring it to d5, which is what we're going to be looking at during the game, right? But here right now he'd have to protect this b pawn. And if they trade these guys off, well, you know where this guy's going, right? You know he'd want to sink in there, but he can't right now because the knight would just trade. Can't have a knight posted like that in that beautiful outpost. But anyway, okay, we'll go back. So that would be c5 wouldn't be so bad right now, but Morphy playing c6, right? Not a6, c6. Anderson pushing ahead anyway. Well, now the bishop gets to go back to c7, right? So. And there's this beautiful outpost now. You see that, folks? The knight, if it could get there, that's the square for the knight. All right, so here we go. We got bishop drawing back to c7, and here bishop c4. Now Morphy ignores the attack on his bishop. If they trade, he takes back with the queen. He's got to develop his pieces, and here he goes. I mean, here, if you take, you just bring in the knight right to like what they were talking about. Matter of fact, now with c6 coming up, this is even an outpost, right? No black pawns could boot a knight out of there, but you got the bishop that would take it. But anyway, okay, so it's shaping up. Here we go. Morphy does not take. You don't want to help your opponent bring the pieces to the outposts, right? So he develops his own knight. You got to get the men into battle, right? So here you go. Anderson castles, and now Morphy. Look at this move, folks. Very instructive. Here it is. Look, you got b5, hitting that bishop, right? Now, the old master's right. Forcing white's reply, as otherwise the 2 pawns against one on the extreme queen's wing would have been bad for him. Anderson takes on passant. You got it, folks. And Morphy takes back, okay? You got to do it, because if you don't, what do they mean? 2 pawns against one on the extreme queen's wing. Well, if he just draws him back the way Shred is showing here, let's just show these two pawns, the A and the B pawn, these two black pawns against the one white one. That would be an advantage. It's like an ace up the sleeve for black in the end game, because he could create a passed pawn. Now, we're far from the end game, but you got to realize that could be an advantage. He could, if the pieces were all gone and the kings are all the way on the king side, you know, black could create a passed pawn over there on the extreme queen's wing, the B and the A files, far away from those kings. That pawn could be the difference. The passed pawn. I mean, even now, he goes there, look, you don't want to trade. You advance. This guy's ready. Now he's a protected passed pawn, 3 steps away to touchdown. You understand? All right, he would relinquish C4, but still, you got, you know, you give one thing up to get another. That's what chess is about. And you got to weigh the options, right? This would be good. This would be good for black. He's got an endgame advantage here with this protected pass B pawn now. If all right, yeah, that's basically the point, okay? So white's forced. He's forced. After this, he's got to take. And this is also good for white in a way, because now this guy is a backward pawn. I mean, let's see. Anderson, he brings the queen up, I think, like Shredder wants to do, right? Let's see. Where is it? Yes. 19. Move 19. Queen up, folks. Now he's threatening to take the bishop on E6, the black bishop here. And what's shaping up is this guy, this C pawn, there's an open C file here for white. He could put pressure on this. Now, if he could play it up right now and trade it off. But even then, he'd end up with, you know, for one, his piece is hanging, right? Morphy protects the piece, okay? Might as well throw that in. And he brings the king rook. You might think, well, which rook do I use? Obviously, we're talking about the queen side here. We got the open A file. This rook's good where it is. You want the rooks on the open files. You're not going to bring him over here, because then this guy, he doesn't have any play on an open F file. So you want to bring him, move him over. There's no future on the F file. That's the way it looks now. Meanwhile, this guy's doing good. The A8 rook is already in a good spot, right? So you bring the king rook over to E8 to protect the bishop. And even like I was saying, even, let's see, does he bring this guy up here? Yeah, he brings the bishop, develops the other minor piece. Now, the point is, right now, he could, you know, even if he trades, what would happen, though, you see, he would push. All right, it would make sense to push. Now he's got a pass pawn going, putting pressure on black. But even if they trade, right, either this guy is on the open B file and can be, you know, put pressure on him. If he takes back, now you got this pawn is a target on the open file there for white. If you're going to see a rook come over, this guy has no future over here. You're going to want to put him on the C file. You see how it goes, folks? These are the ideas that are going to start shaping up. So Morphy, you know, he protects his bishop. That's with queen to B3 threatened to take the piece, right? So he's got to defend him, and like we said, Anderson develops his bishop to B2. Yeah, so he's looking to play D5 to open that diagonal for the dark square bishop on B2. And now Morphy hits with B5, forcing Anderson to trade the bishop, because what are you going to save him? Only to lose your queen, right? Nonsense. So, okay, so he takes, and here Morphy takes back. But they say this leaves the queen pawn, the C pawn, I should say. This leaves the C pawn weak. Zuckertorch suggests instead of B5, he suggests queen. He suggests queen to G6, followed by queen to F7, and then the black knight would come to F6. Okay, that's all they leave it. Those 3 moves. Here, boom, boom, and then the knight to F6. Okay? That's the Zuckertorch recommendation for black. But by doing this, he makes, they're going to trade, right? He makes this pawn now is a backward pawn. There's no hope of supporting C5 with the the pawn on b6, right? You can't trade it off that way. Once this guy goes up, right, they trade. Now this guy is a backward pawn. And what Anderson does here is he doesn't want to trade queens, right? He brings the queen to c2. All right. But Shredder and the old masters suggest king rook to c1. Again, no future here, folks. King rook to c1 was best here. If black then exchanged queens, the weakness of the c pawn became very evident. Look, he takes back. Now, white controls c5. Again, you don't have your b pawn on b6 to support c5 pawn push, right? So this guy is a backward pawn now. This c pawn is a backward pawn, and he can't come here. White controls c5. You just give away the pawn. You just lose the pawn like that. But look at Shredder with the tactics, okay? You can actually, because it looks like c5, c6 is hanging, right, folks? It looks like, you know, black could maybe protect it like this, I guess. But look at this. Shredder finds a tactical defense. Look, if you take, you got bishop takes. And now if he takes here, you got bishop takes, check. You got an in-between move. The king can't get there. He can't capture the bishop, right? He's got to get out of check. Now you have time to take back. So it's actually black who wins the pawn. Look, it's 5 pawns to 4 of white's. You see that? He'd be up. He'd be winning here. All right. So anyway, you know, it's in the favor of black, right? It said there -2. Look at this. After this, -2 for black. He's up. All right, that should be a win for black. All right, so it's amazing, right? You take here. Now, one thing to note, again, which rook? If you brought this rook, the tactics don't work. He takes, what are you doing? Now, if he takes here, it doesn't work because he could capture with check before you capture on e3 with check. See that? And then there you go, look, and then he gets your bishop. See that? So it's very, you got to be precise, right? That's the whole thing. So it's got to be this one. And if he takes, that's a big boo-boo, right? There you go. You try to protect, big deal. Then you grab this guy. You save your bishop, and you just want a pawn. Okay? But, all right, anyway, there you go. That's just a little trick, little thing to take note of. The old masters figured this was better for white, but black does have this saving grace, you know. All right, he goes here. And now, okay, you protect the bishop b6. Now the rook's protecting c6, and you see why it's better. It's better to have the rook behind the pawn than on a6. You could immediately protect from a6, even though the knight could swing in here and chase your rook away, I guess. But look at the setup now. He goes here. Now you move your bishop to b6 to what, folks? To support the c pawn, right? To support this guy. You got the knight, you got the bishop, and the rook is better on c8 than on a6, protecting this guy, because he's now supporting the push of the pawn. You get it? He's now supporting the push of the pawn. All right, to c5. Now, all right, maybe he wants to do this and sink this guy in here. Maybe that's better because overall, this guy doesn't have a future. Okay, you go back here, look. He comes in here. Now the d pawn could never move, and this guy's a bad bishop now. See that? So positionally, maybe that's the better play, but you see how it falls into place. Some little tips. You got your rook behind the pawn, and you can push it up if you wanted to trade it. After this, he takes there. All right, you're coming to d5, I guess. He could get some. Yep, the bishop can now get a future on this diagonal. See how it works? But okay, anyway, totally different game. You see the engine? It's plus 0.10, right? Insignificant, folks. Insignificant. So the old masters, while it looked good, they had this You know what? Knight takes, then forget it. They're thinking that white's better, but he's not. It's still close, okay? It's still pretty much anyone's game. Okay, so they trade, right? He trades again. Rook here now is what Shredder and the old masters thought were better for white. But maybe Anderson saw all this, maybe he saw this. Anderson being a tactician, folks, you know, trade this here, you know, he could see this from a mile away. You know, I would think he could find this. The guy was just full of tactics. All right, that's my guess. No one will ever know, though, right? And Anderson feels, all right, I want to keep the queens on the board. Queen to c2. And then he's going to bring the rook over to c1, and he's going to put pressure, right? He's going to pile up on c6. Okay, so after that, we got this. Look at this move. Queen to d5, okay? And now he's preventing that pawn from coming up, keeping this bishop, you know, bad. And now you get the king rook coming over as expected. But now the move is not good. Black finding time to double his rooks. They say pawn to a4, on the other hand, was strong. Well, I don't know about that either, because if you see the engine, he's already calculating it slightly in black's favor. If you look down here, right? 0.68. I don't know, he likes this move. Takes, all right, you trade him off. All right, what do you think? I don't know. Anybody's game? Oh, I tell you what. Look at this, folks. I like taking that knight off. I'd say you take the knight. Let me see. Is he going to move that knight? Yeah, he's going to. If he moves the knight, we can't take it. I'd say take the knight now while you can, right? Okay, he takes back. Now he doesn't control the c file anymore too. But the main point of taking that knight, all right, you swap here, right? Now you bring the knight where, folks? Where's the knight going? To the c4 square. Look at this. Look at the beautiful outpost for the knight. I mean, forget it now. Who's shining? Who's doing better, folks? The knight or that bishop on the dark square is blocked by his own pawn on d4. You see how the game of chess is played? You got to grab little bits. You put them together and you start gaining the advantage. See this? Look at it. So now the bishop is a bad bishop. I mean, maybe he could go here and the dark square battery, perhaps, right? But actually, you know, you go there and you're hanging the e pawn. See that? So already he's got to go back to protect this, right? All right, and it's you know, you go from there. It material wise, it's even, right? But positionally, you got that knight. I say the knight is outshining the bishop for now. Who knows what could happen? I don't know. You know, I think in the hands of two grandmasters, I think black's got the edge slightly here. He could pull it out with the technique. You know, you might need some very strong technique, but look at that bishop. He's on c1 defending that pawn on e3. He's like a babysitter. Look at the knight. He's in enemy territory. He's posted on a light square. If white wants to get rid of him, he's got to give up the exchange. He's got to give up the rook for it. He can't get that guy out of there. Maybe try to undermine the b5 pawn that protects him. I don't know. Maybe that's why you bring this guy here. All right, he's going to attack. Maybe try to bring the queen, a counterattack, right, to e7. Threatening mate on g7. All right, enough of that. Get out of here, you. So you move, right? And there you go. It's a battle. Still a battle, but all right. Very interesting, though. Love it. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so they're saying, you know, a4 was strong. Yeah, anybody's game still. Matter of fact, black might even get the better here. Here, look at this. Now they're saying once that bishop takes aim at the knight, get that guy out of there. See that? See, maybe Shredder learned something there. He got that knight to b3 before you could trade it off. But all right, anyway. Okay, makes you laugh. Anyway, okay. So a4 is the move they're thinking. All right, it's anybody's game, I say. All right, so what does Anderson do at this point? Just like Shredder shows, He brings his rook to c1 now. But here we go, and it says, now the move is not good. Black finding time to double his rooks. All right, so Morphy brings the rook up to protect c7, c6, right? And now you have a4. But Morphy can play the other rook over to the a file. Now he doubled the rooks on the a file, and Anderson goes ahead and takes. Right, he takes the pawn, and here Morphy takes back with the queen. All right, he takes back with the queen, and here we got a footnote. Rook takes rook should have been played first, because now White has the chance of playing. Okay, he has the chance of playing rook takes rook to protect c7 once again, right? And now they say the queen check on c4. They trade. Here comes the knight. Recapture. Oh, no, wait. He captures with the rook. Okay? And it says with advantage. With advantage. Now, I don't know, folks. I put the test to Shredder. And here we go. Look. C6 is protected, right? All right. You throw the knight. You know where he's going, right, folks? D5, of course. That's the post for the knight. All right. He swings this guy back. And I mean, at this point, the evaluation is actually in Black's favor. Right there, he puts him slightly up, but nothing substantial. But he's not losing. Does he get the king in the game? You activate your king. What's White's plan? Maybe sink the knight into e5. And I don't know. How could he could he pressure this in any way? Let's say he brings this guy up. All right, here comes the knight. He's going to go to, here goes Black's knight, obviously goes here, right? Okay. Oh, the knight supports this guy. This finds a good diagonal now. That's a smart move, right? But now you put pressure on the knight. If the knight moves, you win the bishop, right? All right, the knight's not going to move. Here come the kings. I don't know, a little... No big threats here. You're just playing positionally now. And I don't know. It looks pretty even. What could I say? You know, Black does have this weak backward pawn here. If he could trade it off for this protected pass D pawn of White, maybe, you know, Black will clearly be, you know, no problems at all. But yet they even put him up slightly. Weird. I don't know. I don't see it. All right. He's going to probably come down to the rook could invade maybe. But I don't know. Everything looks okay. That's probably a draw as far as I know. All right. So we go back, right? So they're trying to say, you know, Morphy shouldn't have taken the pawn on b5. You know, they said he should have played this first. He plays that. All right, you're taking rook takes, bishop takes. Now you take. All right, now you take. All right, White gets a check in. No big whoop. But this guy is still a bad bishop with this pawn in the way. He can't push it up now, else he just loses the pawn. All right, he goes here. So I guess going to develop the bishop on a3. He wants to trade. If he was to trade, well, now this guy's not so weak anymore. You know, maybe this is a better pawn structure. He takes the long diagonal. And there you go. What do you got? You know, it looks drawish, right, folks? Looks drawish. Pretty even. Being that this pawn might seem weak, this d5 pawn, but if White was to put his knight here and attack it, right, from c3, and the bishop, if he was on light squares, maybe, but he's on the dark squares. So really, There's no threat to that pawn. Once the king comes up to e6, right, he could protect it. The knight could play in here. Nice outpost. You know they'll trade knights if that's the case. But I'll tell you what would be nice for black is if he could trade his bishop for white's knight, then sink the knight in on c4, similar to what we saw before, you know. Then that knight is really nice. All right, but there you go. So it's pretty much an even game at this point. Even game. You know. That's if he trades. That's if black wants to trade queens. All right, he goes in for the check instead. You're blocked with this guy. I mean, I guess you don't want the queen coming down on this side, you know, attacking these pawns maybe. Maybe that's why. What do you think, Shredder? What do you think? Either way, look, okay, he likes the block. He likes the block a little better, I guess. I don't know. Let's see, what happens? You tie up that piece, now he's blocked. He's pinned, I should say. He's pinned. Now he goes after the knight. Queen's protecting it. All right, so the king finds safety over there on g6 for now. Can't be harassed. I guess he's coming here. There he comes, c3. Notice black stays on the light squares. Out of the influence of this guy, you see? So I don't know. At this point, looks like a draw to me, folks. Although, you know, black's looking a little cramped. And then, you know, I don't know. I mean, how cramped can you be in an endgame like this? There's not that many pieces, right? So maybe black holds on. Look at this pawn on c6 actually keeps the knight back. He can't hop in, right? So he can't hop into the black position at this point. Maybe he'll come to a4. Let's see, he goes here. Maybe the knight will come in like this. I don't know. It's a game, folks. You know, it could be anybody's. So, all right. We go back. I mean, either line, whether Morphy takes b5 right away or he trades the rooks on the a file, it's pretty much falls into the similar, you know, it's a close one. It's anybody's game. But okay, Morphy, before trading all the pieces off, he takes on b5. Okay. He leaves the rooks on, I should say. Okay? Now we got the check. We got the check coming in. Morphy trades the queens. Okay? And now he takes down here, just like Shredder's showing. Bishop takes. Anderson wanting to keep that rook on c1 to pressure the c6 pawn. Okay? But now, let's see. Bishop takes rook. Now the knight comes to f6. He's going to bury it on d5. That's where the knight wants to go. The bishop comes up. Okay, he's coming up. Here comes the rook. Now they're saying this first, or this guy coming up. King up. But Morphy plays the rook down to the 7th, penetrating into the enemy position. This is where you want your rook. Okay, and he blocks. Anderson doesn't block from b2. He blocks from d2, protected by the knight. And he's protecting, now that the knight swings into d5, he's protecting this pawn. And so's the knight, I guess. But, all right, anyway, king over. Let's see, bishop back. King over to protect that bishop, so now the knight can leap into e5. Here comes the black bishop to e7. Rook over to b1, taking the open file. He's going to try to penetrate himself, you know. Black, Morphy has his rook in enemy territory. Anderson's trying to do the same, I guess. Here you go, rook to b1. Morphy making a hole, making a little escape square. Why? Because if he doesn't, I mean, all right, he could play this. When the check comes, the king comes up. The knight can leap in, but now bishop takes, see? Bishop would just take. Remember what we said. He would love to trade his bishop for the knight. Right? Look at that bishop on the dark squares, blocked by his pawns. Remember this theme, bad bishop. It's a battle of minor pieces, folks, and black's winning at this point. And it doesn't show much on the evaluation. It's under a pawn advantage for black, but he definitely has the better minor piece. All right, so he try to fight. Okay, he plays this up. He tried to fight to maybe get this guy, around. But look, he can't go here. The rook, he can't come in because of the knight, right? To get it there, or he can't even go here to get it there because of the knight. I mean, actually, look, if he plays this, he loses the pawn altogether, right? So he can't even move the bishop yet. And the king can't come up. See what's good about the rook on the 7th? He can't relieve the bishop by bringing the king up to e2 or f2 to defend e3 pawn, because then the bishop's pinned and he wouldn't be able to move anyway, right? So black's kind of tying white up a little bit. The little bit of the few pieces that remain, white's still getting a bit tied up. All right, so there you go. So I mean that's just a little something. Couple of pointers there, right? Shredder playing the bishop to f6 to avoid the knight coming in. But here Morphy plays this. He plays h6, and sure enough the knight comes in to e5. Right? Beautiful outpost. No black pawns could boot him out. So there's a note though. The rook check is not good as it looks. It is not as good as it looks, because after the king going into his little hole on h7, they give rook to attack the weak pawn, the c6 pawn. Black replies bishop to b4. All right, let's look. If he takes, okay, folks, we take back. We protect our c pawn, right? And the king is the white king. All right, you attack these pawns over here. What can he do, right? Is it worth taking that pawn? I guess so. He could come out over here, but he's kind of trapped, right? The knight gets a good square. Oh, we'll go for the e3 pawn, right? You take him, I'll take you with check, right? And then hop. I guess all right, hop over here with check. All right, now you see what's coming, folks. Here comes the rook check on the 7th, right? Now the pawn and the knight block him out. Look at this. He has to go to the back rank, and you might be able to start threatening your pawn coming down. Although white has the d4 pawn, so you play here to maybe stop his attempt to run in. All right, he's covering the d5 with his knight. He's going to advance. But will he get time? Will he get time, folks? Will he get time? Mouse slip right there. Check, right? Look at this. He wins it. Okay, he wins it. All right, now black's really doing good. Here you go. He threatens. No big deal. Give the check. He comes up to the only square. The knight covers these two, the light squares, right? He comes here. You check on b3, huh? Check on b3. All right, where's he going to go? Guess we're getting ready to march the pawn down, right? Look at this. If he comes to attack the knight, can you launch the pawn down? There it is, folks. Look, how could he stop it, right? King's going to have to come to d3. He can't go here. He can't go here because of the knight and pawn. You'd have to try to stop him now. Okay, he protects it. Is he going to win the rook like this? Because if he moves, what's he going to do, folks? If he moves, right? He moves the pawn up. What else is he going to do? He's going to give the knight up now. But it's going to be with check. All right, 2 pawns each. So black's up he's clearly up the piece, once he regroups. All right, so he's up the piece, right? All right, so here we go. We go back. We go back. We got to go back quite a ways. I got sucked in by, forgive me, folks. It was too interesting to note. Look. So, bishop here, I mean, you're threatening to take, right? If he takes here, for instance, you're threatening to take, knight takes, and then you get this guy, all right? And now, they both have a passed pawn, right? Black's being a protected passed pawn, but this guy could be weak, see? Because he's not protected by anybody. So, still could be tricky, though. He's going to, oh, he's threatening to win. He's threatening to win the knight. See that? So he'd have to, he'd rather lose the exchange than lose the full piece outright. You'd rather be down in the exchange plus a pawn for white. He has the knight for a rook, but he has the extra pawn, opposed to being down a full knight. So look at this. So he goes here. This might be tough. I know they say when the pawns are even and it's knight against rook, if the pawns are on one side of the board, the knight can usually hold. And here he's even up a full pawn. And why not bring the knight up to protect it? He's going to run in for it. Now he just loses it. That was kind of stupid. Why not just do this, folks? Why not go like this? Oh, you're gonna lose your other one over here. Okay. All right. My mistake. You gotta look at everything. And it looks like Black's winning now at that point. So after this, all right, he's gonna win this pawn. He takes. This might be tricky. He's gonna bring the knight. To e5 perhaps. If you could trade off the pawns. There you go. He's in the outpost. Maybe you just could build like a fortress type of thing. Now he can't take here. Why, folks? Because he wins the knight, right? All right. So now you want to move your knight, or all right, you leave him there. Okay, they trade down. Maybe you should play. Maybe you should just advance. But okay, let's do what Shredder thinks. He gives Black a little better here. He's up. It's -4 right now. Can Black hold this, Grandmasters? I don't know. I mean, can White hold this? Can Black get the win? Why would he? He goes. Let's see. He goes back. Oh, now the king's coming up. And if he tries to protect them, he's just going to get attacked by the rook. See? So it's looking pretty dire here. So I don't think he can't hold. After this, they trade. Yeah, if he takes with the king, he gets checked, and then he has to abandon his knight. All right, then he loses the knight. So he's got to take back with the pawn. And he comes up. And then the rook is going to get the king. Let's see, wait a minute. The king's going to get to e4. So that's why he loses. For instance, if it's Black's move and Black used to put the rook on a3, White would be able to block it like this at this point, right? But then even king up to c4 would win it. So he's still, yeah, White's White's looking bad here. Black's going to win it. All right. There you go. He's going to win the... Can't really do anything. You threaten the defender, right? Comes back in here. If he takes, what do? Right? You just, that's it. That's the game. Here he comes. He's going to come in. And it looks like it's just a king and pawn endgame now. The knight's going to get trapped on the edge. All right. Let's see how it concludes here. Here you go. Here he comes, folks. Here he comes. Check. King up. Take the knight. Look at that, folks. And in he goes. In he goes. Oh, so close. Huh, White? You were oh so close. No cigar. Black pulls it out. Okay. How did we get here? I don't even remember, to be honest. Let's go all the way back. What were we talking about? Oh, man. Okay, so, oh, yes, bishop here, threatening, you know, if White takes the c-pawn, if he finally jumps the gun, he's been trying to win that pawn. Boom! You lose the e-pawn, though, now. And, you know, the way we just played it with the protected pass e4 pawn, look at that, he's threatening to win the knight. So, he gives up the exchange, and there you go. We go from there. All right. He drives him back, drives the king back. Endgame's very important to try to centralize your king and get him in the action. If the rook could cut him off like he did here, it's a plus, okay? You handicap your opponent. You take his king out of the endgame like that. Very, very key. Okay, so this is what they were saying, right? If I'm not mistaken, that was move 35, okay? If the rook was to come down, right, if the rook was to come down, king up, he tries to attack your c-pawn, you attack his bishop. All right? And that's what the old masters, they just left it at that. All right? Now, if he takes, you take back, and your knight is protecting c6. He saves this guy from being eaten up. But now you go after, I guess, that one. Look at this. They trade, maybe. All right, rook over, attacking the knight. The knight moves here, not here. He's going after the f pawn. All right, but they trade over there. Okay, knight goes in, attacking e3. What happens if you take here? He goes where? Threatening mate. Look at this. Threatening rook, h8, mate. No way out except this. Then he plays here. He's threatening mate again. And is this going to be one of those stalemate scenarios? Look at this. Jumping back. There you go again, right? That's it. The knight swings back, protecting his rook, so the king can't go this way. He's got to go back. And it's a draw. Because White's down here, just to show you, White's down here threatening mate, like I said. Wow. That would have been something. But let me see something. If he goes this way, right? If he goes this way, what happens? He checks here. He gets this guy. Now let's see here. If he goes up, he's only got 2 squares. If he goes up, he loses this one, right? If he goes here, same idea. He loses this one. King moves, and then you lose that one. No threat anymore of mate, right? He's got g7 now because the pawn's gone. Very nice, huh? So White would have to just keep going back to e1. He'd have to keep going back. So they do the dance. between E1 and D1. There you go, and you get the draw. Threefold repetition, right? Some game. All right. So anyway, here's another way it could go, right? Just another way. But Anderson doesn't check with the rook and then attack the C pawn. He brings, like we said, the knight to E5. Well, that's where it wants to go, right, folks? Putting pressure on C6. Beautiful outpost for the knight. No black pawns could boot him out. Good move by Anderson. All right, so what does Morphy do? He has time to get rid of his weakness, folks. Of course, C5! Exclamation point. All right, it says here now Anderson takes, right? But let's see here. It says if rook to B5, then rook check, king up to E2, rook back to A2, pinning the bishop on D2, and the result of which should be a drawn ending. I don't know, folks. I was looking at this. I mean, it puts the evaluation looks like it's drawn, right? But then when the engine starts playing, okay, you keep checking. I mean, okay, he goes back. Maybe this is all he does, right? But now look, it figured out to come up this way. You check him. What if you just go here and then on the check you come up? Alright, he goes to the other side. He attacks the pawn. He goes after the bishop on this side, right? Pinning the bishop. The only way to save it would be king down or the knight, right? What if the knight goes here? You take. Look at this. You win the pawn. Look at that. The bishop's pinned. He can't take it. If the knight takes, well, then you win. You win the bishop because the knight's not defending. He can't defend the pawn and the bishop, right? Pretty slick. Look at this. And now he wins a pawn here. He wins this one. Uh-oh, okay. He's got to go back. Alright, he trades him off. He wins this guy. I don't know. Is this a draw, folks? Looks like it. He goes here. He's going to lose the pawn, isn't he? He's just going to go behind, get behind the pawn, right? If he takes him, I'll take that guy, right? Let's try to save him at least. Who knows, right? It looks like a draw. Alright, but anyway. That was cute. This move, okay. You pin the bishop. The only way that bishop can be saved is for the king to defend. And again, if the king comes here, folks, the bishop's pinned. Now you can take this with check, no less. Look at this. You go right back. He's coming up. All right, look at this. You win him. He wins that guy. But now you're marching him down. Look at this. You're threatening to play rook to D1 next. So he's got to play over here. You take this one. All right, this looks pretty good. Look at this. The king can't even get in to attack the rook. Look. He can't get here because of the pawn. He can't come in. He can't go this way and come in. Look at this. He's stuck. So now the knight tries to help out. Alright, I see black winning this one. He's up almost 2, it says. He's got the threat of that pawn queening, and he's got the extra. He has 2 extra pawns here, folks. And he has the bishop versus the knight. Alright, so he's up. He's up here. Alright, so, I mean, Shredder's saying to move the king back here. Why would you go back? Why would you go back? You know, it makes me wonder. I mean, it shows that black is clearly winning. Let's just see what's going on. It's such a puzzling move. The end game, you can do these paradoxical type moves. You know, it's crazy. You go backwards and it's actually like you're going forward. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, at this point, black shows black's up 2. All right, you move this up. All right, now he gives the check down here, and you got that little hole. I mean, okay, so what's the, you got to stop, let's see. The knight's covering that queen and square. All right, let's say he goes after the bishop, just something crazy, right? What can you really do? You come around. Now you abandon this guy, but then you threaten the knight. The knight's got to leap in. It's got to leap into E1, right? Well, look at this. He's threatening mate, folks. Look at that. He threatens mate. Look at this. Look, if you go to queen, he gets you with mate. Look at that. You got to always watch. Amazing that the things that could crop up in an endgame, right? When you think it's all over. Look at this. So now, all right. If you take them, it's mate also. Look at this. All right. So what do? You got to check. He moves. And you got to stop him. Wow, look at that. Now the bishop protects the rook, which protects h7. If he tries to go in, obviously, right? There you go. You win easy now. He won't even take you. Look, he'll have to go back to try to stop the queen coming in. Ah, why go crazy? Look. There you go, right? All right, so anyway, just when you think white turned the tables there, right? Amazing stuff. So if he goes back, all right, and white's not going to want to, he's not going to want to attack the bishop in the first place, so he just goes back. Now the bishop's going to come around. Your queen, let's see where this leads, right? He takes, you check. This is a threat to f5, for instance. You just move, right? You can take, look. The pawn is pinned, folks. Tactics in the endgame. Look at this. You're going to win the rook, too. I guess he checks first. Gets him to the back rank. He keeps the black king there. Imprisoned on the, the rook keeps him on the back rank now. See that? He can't do anything. The white king is free to roam while the black king is trapped on the last rank there. All right, so anyway, that's the threat. Rook down, pins the g-pawn. So he gets out, breaks the pin, so the knight can't take on f5. And it shows black's up. Oh, he wins this guy. He's going to win the other one. Now he takes here. It's the fork. We're doing it quick, folks. We're doing it quick. Looks like white's going to hold now. So anyway, we did the moves quick. So I guess this is better for black. He was up at one point by like 2 pawns here. You go all the way back, right? He goes back here at this point. Could just repeat with that move again. But anyway, okay. So, if anybody, it's white's back is against the wall. Black is the one who's got the chances of winning this, right? I think you would agree with that much. So, this is stemming from going way back, pretty crazy, right? We went really far into this one. But, okay, yeah. You know, they're saying that black, all right. Again, remember this, folks, coming all the way down. If the rook comes up to b5 to attack, rook check, and basically the black rook pins the bishop. If the king eventually tries to go after, you just keep pinning that bishop. If he tries to come after you, you know, you end up going after the other pawn on this wing, the h-pawn. Then you pin the bishop from this side. He's got to go back. If he goes this way, you take. And that's what we got into here, the craziness, right? And even now, look at this. You got this move. You're forking the bishop and the g3 pawn, so he's got to go back to defend. And there you go. He's got to go back to defend this guy, which defends g3. I mean, so there's even better moves. What about, why not taking maybe? First with check now. Okay, get the knight out of there. So he takes you now, and you take with the bishop. Big deal. All right, there you go. And if you haven't noticed, look at the black pieces surrounding the white king. Look at this. He can't go here because of the pawn. He can't go here or here or here because of the rook. He can't go here or here because of the bishop, and he can't go here because of the knight. So rook to c2 would almost be checkmate, but he's got b3 available. Matter of fact, he gets out of it right now. But anyway, okay, so black even has other options, as you can see. He can go other ways with this. So, I mean, if anything, black's the one who's got the chances of winning. Okay, so rook to b5 for white is really not great. So Anderson just takes, and here comes the bishop recapturing. So Morphy, again, look at this. The weak c6 pawn is now gone, see? He trades it off for the d pawn, see? There you go. And now, look at the pawn structures. They're pretty much even, except if you look at white's, they're on the dark squares, right? The same color as his bishop. Now, the white bishop, though, could probably get onto this long diagonal over here, right? Maybe even over here if you can challenge eventually. But he could maybe post up here, switch with the knight. So he's got more options now that the center is cleared. But his 4 kingside pawns are still on dark, right? All right, but anyway, here you go. Shredder finds the move Anderson finds. Okay? And now you got this move. Look at this. Like Shredder shows. He takes on e3. All right? Anderson takes the bishop. And now we got the knight coming to g2 with a check. Okay? And sure enough, just like Shredder, Anderson comes up. Now, they give the footnote. If he goes here, according to the old masters, if the king goes to d1, black equally replies with e3. Okay, and when there is nothing better than, well, they give this line instead of moving this one, because then you check, right? And then king's gonna move, and you're coming down with the queen, right? Now then you eventually win the bishop for it. See, like you're winning the bishop back. So it's a fancy way that they trade down. That's basically what ends up happening. Okay? And it shows it might have a slight plus for white. Right, here you go. But it's under 1. Who knows? No, look, it's basically 0.00 now. It's a draw. The way the engine's finding it. Okay? And the material's even. The only thing is maybe that black knight, right? You think he's in trouble? Well, we're going to see. That's the theme of the end game now. Anderson tries to trap Morphy's knight. Okay? But this would pretty much lead to similar thing that we see in the game. Okay? So here's what they give. After this, the old masters say e3, and instead of moving the bishop and we getting this, right? We're gonna see what the old masters say. They have leave the bishop there, attack the rook, right? So rook down. Now the old masters give rook takes rook, king takes. Well, you got to grab the bishop now. King takes the pawn. Now they give pawn up, right? Looks like the white the black knight on G, right here, he's got nowhere to go, right? The white king blocks him. There's nowhere to go for this guy, so he's trapped. So the pawn's got to try to rescue him. Look. All right, so we see how this goes now. The pawn takes pawn, and when the knight goes back attacking G5, well, you push up like Shredder says, and now the old masters give, knight takes, pawn takes, pawn takes. Now that makes sense because white wants to keep the knight trapped. He wants to keep a pawn on G3 of all things because he doesn't want the knight to be able to get out. See? It covers H4 and F4, and the king covers the other two still, so that makes sense. He's going to try to win the knight, and then he'll be up the pawn and knight, and it's an easy win if he could get that, but it's not so easy. Easier said than done. Here they go, right? The old masters. This is the line the old masters give. So, let's see. King over, king up to G6. The knight drops to F3. This is what they give. King up to F5. There he is. He's about to gobble him up. Will he get him? No, because he dives out just in the nick of time. Yes, he loses his life, but black gets to capture that pawn, folks. And there it is. Once the pawn is off the board, there's no way that white can checkmate black now. You can't do it, folks. Go ahead. Take that as a homework assignment. Try to mate the lone king with just your king and knight. Never going to happen. Can't do it. So this is a draw. Once that pawn, folks, black, okay, the knight sacks itself. He does go in the box, but at least he lets his monarch live another day, right? The black king survives because with the death of the knight comes the death of that pawn, see? And there's no winning chances now. So it's a draw. All right. Now, there's a few deviations from this line, but I think black holds in all cases, right? Now, you'll see Shredder picked a few different choices here. After this, he says to go up, right? And, you know, he does lose this pawn. Goes back. But now the black knight has E3 still to leap to, see? Because the F pawn remains. And now the white knight keeps the black king out of G5, and the pawn on G4 keeps the black king out of H5 and F5. So it's pretty tough because now the white king's going to come up and attack the black E pawn. And I don't think black could hold it. The whole question is, now he's going here to threaten a fork, right? So if he comes up, for instance, well, now you get this one, see? You get the H pawn. And basically after that, black's just going to try to sack the knight like in the other line. Just try to sack the knight for the pawn. There you go, right? I mean, heck, he couldn't. Look, the king was in check, actually, so what are you going to do? All right, he goes here, right? He goes there to prevent him. And then we just wait. We just wait, and we'll take out that pawn one way or the other, right? We'll go for it, right? Okay, king goes here. Yeah, we don't want to check the king. Look at this. Once the king goes down, where's the knight go, right? Oh, but he loses the pawn. Oh, my mistake. He can't go for the knight because the whole objective, remember, who cares if you lose the knight as long as the black king could grab that pawn. All right, so that's not necessarily too bad, but now he's trapped, right? Now the black knight is trapped. He has to back off. I don't know. It still says it's a draw. Let's just check it out. I guess there's no way to make any. Look at that. Look at this. If he doesn't take the knight, well, if he takes, we take. Draw, right? If he doesn't take it, we take the pawn with the knight, see? There you go. There's many ways. These are just some ideas. Many ways that knight can hold. You're down one pawn, you got to be careful, but the fact that you could sack the knight for the pawn is what allows you to draw, because white cannot checkmate with his king and knight alone. See, so, and you just get one of these scenarios, right? You just keep checking to death, or you end up sacking, right? Matter of fact, why not just go like this and take, see, like we said, there you go, draw, right? All right, so he can hold with the tactics, folks, with the tactics. He can hold. I guess he'll go after him. He just will go back. Right, you buy time. Here you go. Once he goes to D3, there you go. You try to set the fork up. See? There you go. Just go back. See? It's a waiting game. And there's really, white can make no progress. See? Now with the knight there, you come up, right? Okay, the king's going to come up to defend G4. But let's just say he went there, right? What do, folks? You can't actually see the knight on E5. The idea would be, what I was thinking is, you sack it for the 2 pawns, right? But you can't, because the knight defends this one now, see? The knight on E5 defends the second one. But if you could sack the knight, you know, and win the 2 pawns, you go ahead and do it. It's basically, you know, game over then. So he's coming up. I don't know, what do? I guess, okay, you go back to defend. Can he come up? Not real. This might be bad for black. He can't win it. He can't, okay, he can't win the pawn because the king still defends. All right, here we go. We're going for the H3 pawn. If he wins this, we win that. He goes up. We go to attack it. He goes up again. Look at this. We go to attack it now. He goes up and we get the fork. Look at that. It was just set up, folks, and then we sack it. Or we win it. We win it. If it was a sack, we'd sack it. We just got to get that pawn off the board, and it's a draw. See how it worked out? Look at that. Now this is dangerous. If that king wasn't there on F4, this pawn marching just keeps on harassing that knight. He'd make it to G8, but luckily the position of the king grants him the tactics to win the pawn. All right. So anyway, there's many other ways it could go, but basically black holds. Got to be careful. But with the tactics and the knight fork possibilities, he could win. He could sack himself for the remaining pawn. Okay? That's if he goes here. A little different, you know. All right, so we looked at that. Let's see something here. After this, pawn takes, knight back. And we looked at both, right? We looked at this like the old masters, and we looked at that. Okay, so black can hold in either scenario, right? So that's with the king coming after the knight check over here on G2, the knight going to D1. All right, so Anderson comes to E2. But now the bishop's pinned, folks. And look at this, Morphy, just like Shredder, he goes for it. Okay, it pretty much shapes up the same way. Now Anderson drops the knight back, but look at this. Steinitz claims in the notes that if rook to D5, white had a win. But black can then answer, rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, pawn takes, king takes, and G5, and we got the same variation given in the last note, right? It transposes, folks. It's the same thing. We just looked at it, right? You don't believe me? Pawn takes, look, he goes back, okay? There you go, pawn up, and it's exactly the same. Here they gave this, the old masters gave that, this, right? King up, king over, king up. He went here, king up, king over. Knight comes out, and you win the pawn for it. See? There you go. Same thing, right? Same exact thing. And this doesn't win either because we had the knight here, or however it worked out. There you go. We go there, I guess. Okay, so he wins this. I don't know. But anyway, we looked at those two different lines. So it pretty much shapes up the same way. So Steinitz is trying to say that rook over would have gave white a win, but it doesn't. Transposes to what we looked at. Okay. As for, let's see, they have another line. As for move 39, okay, instead of rook over, they say, as for knight to c4, protecting the bishop. Well, then we take the bishop now while we can. And then they say rook takes bishop pawn. Okay, pawn in, queen, baby. But okay, the king eats it up. And then, okay, rook attacks the knight. The knight goes to b2. Okay, you check. King up. You come over after the h-pawn. Then you go king over, right? Now you take, and now the king attacking both pieces, right? If the rook moves, the knight dies, right? But get this, you got knight, like Shredder sees it right away. He goes there, and then you win that guy, right? And here you go again. It just says after after this it's a draw. 2 pawns and a knight each, right? Basically drawn. What are you gonna do? Okay, so black can hang in there. Black hangs in there. So what does Anderson do? Let's go back. Okay, let's check out what he does here. So so on this, okay, the knight. That's right. The knight comes back to f3. He tries this instead. Okay, now we got, instead of taking, Shredder wants to take, but Morphy protects his f-pawn. All right, the rook comes here now. Now the king, let's see, king comes up. King's getting ready to come into the fight, but Anderson cuts him off, and he puts pressure on g6. Okay, so after that, we got, remember, black's playing with a minor piece down for a pawn, right? So he just moves here. Now remember, the white bishop is pinned, though. It's pinned at this point. So it's, he can still just take it at any moment. All right. Pawn to h4. Now they say if knight here, right, attacking g6, well then simply here. All right, that's all they give. The old masters give that. So let's look. He says to take. You take back, right? Now that the bishop is still hanging, right? He comes back here. Oh boy, now let's see. Now you're gonna have the e pawn is actually protected. Okay. King's gonna come up. You take him. Now, if he was to take your knight, what a mistake that would be. Look, you'd queen with check, folks, with check, because the rook on a2, that's a discovered check. Look. Boom. Right? The rook. You'd have to block. You take. There you go. Game over, right? Game over. Goodbye. Goodbye. Here you go. Right? That's how you finish him off, see? All right. So, okay, so he comes up, you take, he takes with the rook. Okay. Right, so, at this point, Shredder's saying to give the check, but look, simple. Just trade him off, similar to what we've seen. Look, he's going to take on f4, right? Oh, look, he doesn't even want to. I mean, really? It's a draw, folks, because... All right, let's just follow his logic. Well, let's do the obvious, right? If he takes, you come back here with check, right? And now we just wait. Look, we just wait. We wait for that pawn to come up, and we sack the knight for it, right? I mean, what are we going to do? Maybe we'll just keep moving back and forth. Here he comes, right? He's going to give me a check. Here he goes, right? Let's see. He's going to come on in. I see the timing. If I go here, he could go in, and I'd have to move the knight, right? All right, so I move the knight And if he comes up now, and then I come here, and then he goes there, and then I go this way, and he comes up further, I don't know. And what are we going to do, right? What can we do, folks? Let's see. He wants to go there. Knight coming in. We're going to F7, right? We're going to F7. Here we go, and just sack it. What are we going to do? Big deal. You give it up, right? I'm sure there's other ways around for both sides, but that's the basic idea. You know, why go crazy here? Look, once if he takes and you give a check and you get fancy, he's going to take your pawn, right? All right, you want to pin this guy, and he's going to protect it. And what do you go after the H pawn with the rook? All right, fine. And then he's going to move it, I guess. But check first. You come over here. He checks again. Big deal. Where's he coming from behind? If you take it now, you lose, folks. You got to remember the tactics, right? Look at this. He throws a check in first. Really? All right, now he takes it. All right, see, you got to watch those type of tricks. So other than those tactical blunders, you know. All right, now he's saying to go here, right? Keep the pin on the knight. I don't know. Look, isn't it a lot easier? You're the one down, right? He's got the extra pawn. Look, why make it complicated? Trade him off. Get your knight, pull him back. He goes here, right? He takes. All right, you want to come up, maybe? Here comes the knight. There you go. You just wait. You wait. Wait for that pawn to make his move, right? Here he comes, right? He's going to come up. Look at this one, folks. Look at this one. You fork the knight and the white pawn, right? How can you fork a knight when the knight moves the same way? Well, this is a perfect example, because all you're trying to do, now your king's in position. You get in position here. You trade the knights. What could he do? He can't get back in time, see? And you win the pawn, right? There you go. So there's another way it could go, right? Try to saying this, I don't know. You should just go back, protect your pawn, right? What are you going to do? Yeah, it transposes in a sense, right? If you move this guy, he takes, he could take, and I don't know. Oh, here we go. Run our guy in, right? Run our guy in. All right, he takes there. I don't know. We're doing it quick. We're doing it quick. I know. He's going to give up the knight in order to get that. Look, the white knight can't come back to protect that pawn. Right? He's too slow. Look, he's going to try to go there and there. It's too late. You gobble him up, right? He's there a second late. No way to checkmate the black king with just a knight. Draw. All right. So there's a couple other lines that, you know, why make it complicated, right? Why go down with the knight? Come on. Let's get the pieces off. We got another round, right? We got the afternoon game to play. Let's go get lunch. Okay, so anyway, let's see. Rook here, king over. All right, that was all hypothetical. If Anderson played the knight to e5, there you go. The old masters just say g5, and that was it. Okay, and we looked a little deeper to understand, okay, where it goes. All right, but now what did Anderson do again? Oh yeah, he played the pawn up here. Played the pawn up. All right. Pawn takes bishop. Rook takes pawn. Now, I guess he's not ready to trade, because if he does, that knight, I guess he gets into trouble in one more move, right? So he'd be in trouble now. The knight is definitely trapped. Okay, so there you go. The logic behind the move. Here he goes. He actually brings it to, instead of here, like Schroeder says, he brings it to A4. Okay, Look in the sack on F4. Look, the king comes over, right? He comes over. Now the knight is going to, where can he go? He's doomed, right? Well, sure enough, Morphy takes the pawn. Now look at this. The old masters say here, just a little side note, if knight to queen 4 to block, right? Because after the knight sacks, I'll show you, like in the game, I was leading on. This is what Morphy does, right? King comes over, Anderson attacks the knight, nowhere to go. He at least gets these 2 pawns for it, and possibly the H pawn also, right? You could pick up the 3 pawns for the piece. Not bad. Okay, but the thing is, now, instead of going after the knight, and they're saying, what if Anderson blocked the rook? Now you just win 1 pawn for it. Not so hot, right? But here you go. Look at this. Shredder finds it. The old master's concluding rook to A3. And still Black's knight cannot be cut off. Right? Because now he's got E3 with the rook support. He's got, just to make a dumb move, he's got this here, right? Alright, he could even take, but he's got this, right? He attacks him there. Uh-oh, okay, wait a minute. Alright, you attack me, I'll attack you. He gets a check in. Alright, he can't save his knight. Let's see, he goes here. He lets him take with check. Goes in the corner. He goes there. Maybe white starts to pull it out, though. That's okay, so that's not so great. So I guess, okay. I was thinking this gives support, but then he has, like we just did, he attacks the rook. Alright. I don't know if this is any better, right? Is that any better? He goes after you this way. So now your rook is hanging once again. Okay, my mistake. Look at that. I would have lost. I would have lost. Okay, so it's for this reason, I guess, that you could take the G3 pawn. Now he attacks both of them. You back up. He goes there, and you get your knight out, because he's threatening to take on F5, and there's no way to save his G pawn, right? Oh, look at this. Check. There you go. Now we take it. All right. So we pin the knight for now. And he comes down, and look at this. Black's up a pawn now. How about that? All right. Black's up a pawn. So, all right. So the old masters and Shredder both finding rook to A3. My mistake. It's not to support the knight. It's to take on G3. Okay. Matter of fact, I threw in this dumb move just to show what was coming. So that wasn't even in the cards, right? Let's see. White says to play this. Can't even trade, because to try to get here now, you still can't escape, because the white knight takes away C2. Look at this. So you're trapped once again in the corner, and you end up having to just get a pawn for the piece, and you lose. This is definitely a loss for Black. So you can't trade. I guess he would go here. What's he gonna do, right? What's he gonna do? I guess he has to just hold on. Sure you want to go there? What's he gonna do? Goes there, we get our knight out. Okay, that was what was scary. And we're gonna, let's see. We're gonna win the H pawn. guess so, right? What if he goes here? What if he goes here to protect it? He lets our king out, I guess. That's not good either. There you go. So we just keep checking him to death. That's what it looks like. What is coming. Now, if the rook wants to get in the game, he's got to abandon the f pawn. So there's the logic. And now we could just check him to death. Just check him to death. Look, he can't go anywhere. Where's he gonna go? Where can he hide? Right. All right. So that's a draw. He tries to come at him. Well, look, if he comes too far, right? He's going to have to go back now. He goes there, big deal. We get this, right? There we go, draw. All right, so if we go all the way back, could be a little scary. And there's chances to make mistakes here, that's for sure. I'm not great at the end game, as you can tell. But, all right, so there you have it. If knight to d4, we got rook a3. And still black's knight cannot be cut off. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back. So what did let's see, what did Anderson do? He brings the king over. All right, he's following through. He's trying to get that knight. And sure enough, Morphy takes the pawn. All right, he takes the knight. Rook takes pawn. And now he forces a trade of rooks, right? Where's that rook going to go? All right. Pretty cute by Anderson. Okay, so now he's got the end game, but now you got 3 pawns against the 1. All that Morphy has to do is knock that pawn out of the game, and that's it. There's no way Anderson can win, right? He needs a queen. He needs a more material on the board. He's got to promote that pawn. So, all right, here comes the king. Here comes the king. Anderson moved the king actually to e3. Pawn up, right? Now, Anderson doesn't want to trade. He knows then it's no point, right? He can't win. So he pushes the pawn up to h5. Here we go, king up, right? And the knight checks, and then Morphy goes back. And then Anderson brings the knight back up, and there it is. Draw, folks, draw! There's the draw, right? Because he could never, he could never really push Morphy back. These 2 pawns control these key squares, right? These key squares. I mean, he's going to come back up. He tries to go this way. All right, we go after the knight. He goes all the way over there. We go back. We keep the king out. All right, he checks us, right? Attack the knight. All right, he goes over there. Attack the knight some more. Right? If he wants to go here, we go back, right? If he goes back this way, we go back, right? He still can't get, the white king can't get through. All right, so there you go. Check. Attack the knight. He goes over there, we go back. Could we go here? He gives a check. We go there, right? Where's he going with all this? Nowhere, right? We're actually making headway. We're actually getting up the board, right? All right, but I don't think black could win in any way. He's just got to keep the white king from getting up. This is the pawn, the h6 pawn, the anchor, in the back there. That's the one that the white knight. Let's see if he can get to it. If he tries to go in, the white king can't get to it, right? So if there's no way to get the knight in, right? How could he get in? Look, if he goes here, can't go here. If he goes in here, you're just controlling these 2. Knight has to stay back. He goes there, you're controlling these 2, right? The knight can't get in. All right, so there you go. It's a draw, folks. It's a draw. Some nice endgame technique there. It's a silly dance, right? I mean, how many amateurs would blow this, you know? But, all right. So there you have it, right? It's interesting enough. I'm even staring at it, thinking, trying to get that knight in there. To try to get that pawn on h6. Can't do it, though. All right. So there you have it. 4-hour game ends in a draw. And that's it for today. We got the 9th match game coming up. Number 57 in the book. All right. Stay tuned for more of Morphy's Games of Chess.